Welcome back to another episode. Today's task is going to be a Corgi Junior's BVRT Vitamin 300 Mini Cooper. Kind of reminds me of the original Honda Civic hatchbacks. So this is a cool little casting. I just figured I'd do something different since I have it. I don't have too many Corgi cars, but some of the castings are pretty cool. I kind of like this one, so I'm going to do a little custom job here. It has some interesting little tabs that hold in the base. It's more like it almost looks like the tail end of a cotter pin when you spread them apart. And I think I'm just going to grind those tips out to get this base off. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. I just put a small a grinding stone. I didn't want to put a grinding wheel or one of the diamond bits in there because I really didn't want to eat into the soft metal. So I already did one side off camera, and now I'm just showing you what I did. I just basically flattened those ends out just enough because I want to save them to... I don't want to glue it if I don't have to. I want to be able to use the tabs over again if possible. So just enough to get it loose, and then a little persuasion with this flat tip screwdriver to pop it apart. And luckily I didn't break anything. So I kind of like this little suspension system that Corgi used. I have a Volkswagen that had two of those. It's kind of like a torsion bar in the center, and it keeps the axles in. And my least favorite interior color, chrome. I'm going to do a little custom job on that. And I have a windshield that has one little tiny crack in it, but I'm going to work with it. And then here's the dip process. I'm actually liking the dip process that a few of the other guys use. So I bought some extra citrus strip. I kind of like that better as far as the odor. And I'm going to do the mason jar trick whenever I can, or whenever I see fit, and see how it continues to work. But I like this way too. So I'm just basting the casting with paint stripper, and then I put a lid on it so everything kind of just like fumigates to bubble the paint up off of the body. I pick up these containers at dollar stores. Sometimes you get 3 packs or 4 packs, or 3 or 4 in one package for $1, depending on what's available. So I'll reuse these. I rinse them out, but sometimes they start getting a little ratty inside, and it's just time to dispose of them. So for the investment, it's well worth it. You can probably do 20 or 30 cars per container until they decide to burn out and get eaten up by the paint stripper, if at all. So I've got my little workspace. I think I mentioned it in the last video or two. I finally set up a new workspace because the old one I had so much work done on it between guitar work and woodworking and some other things. Now that I have my garage set up, I can do some woodworking outside. So this will probably be dedicated just for the guitar work and the customs and any other little crafty things I decide to do. So plastics go in a little soapy water in a container, and they get a soak. These were the wheels I chose off of I forgot what this is. This is from it's like a 2017 or 2018 Cougar casting. Wheelbase was pretty much the same, and the radius was a little bit larger tire, so I figured it might give it a cool look. So I got a donor car. It's actually a cool casting of a newer Hot Wheels car. And the process here is just going to wiggle those old axles out from underneath that torsion bar, I'm calling it. I don't know what to call it. It's a spring, basically. And it's crimped into the body. And they basically slide out. And hopefully the replacements will just slide back in. I already know what the answer to that is, but I'll wait until you see it. So, wheels are out. I'm going to take the wheels out of the donor car. And what I'm doing here is my CLR dip. It actually reminds me of the dip from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the color. And I do this with all my bases. That's full strength CLR in the bucket there. And at full strength, when it's brand new product, this product I've probably dipped 50 cars in, so it's not at full potency anymore. So it's probably 3 minutes when it's full strength, and say 5 to 7 minutes the way it sits now. You can see all the particles of stuff that it's already been pulled off of other vehicles. So it's time for a fresh batch. And I just let that sit. As it removes the oxidation, you can see it bubble. And you see it, oxygen bubbles being made and fizzing up. So I let that cook for about 7 minutes or so. And then just wire wheel it until it comes out looking like this. So I do that for all the metal bases that need a cleanup, or the unpainted metal bases, I should say. And that's about what you're going to get out of something that's as old as this. I believe it's 43 years old. So I had to remove that torsion bar. I ended up bending it. So I pulled it out and I used music wire that we use for some of the Hot Wheels cars. So there's the music wire. They come in different varieties and sizes. And I used a flathead screwdriver, a small one, to wedge those crimps open a little bit to accept the wire. It was basically the same diameter as what I took out, but I made the crimp slot a little bit wider so I could get it in comfortably. And then I just recrimped them. But I didn't want to trust that it would hold. So I actually end up putting some putty, actually some, I forget what it's called. It'll come up in the video shortly here. But I crimped those up, and I ended up using, it's a weld, a metal weld or something to that effect. So here I'm showing that or trying to show that I used a screwdriver to wedge in the crimps to keep them open. Yeah, see, I cranked it open, and then I just crimped those two spots back together. So now I got the axles back in, but I wasn't confident that the crimps would hold. Cool concept, though. I think I was starting to say before, in one of the Volkswagen Corgis I have, there's actually two. One on each side, like passenger side, driver side of the car. This one only has one, so I don't know if that was by design or if it was just cost. Who knows? Maybe certain models have two, certain models have one. But it was pretty sturdy and rigid, and I was happy, but I still went with a backup to put some steel stick. That's what it's called. JB Weld steel stick, which is what you see here. So basically it's a two-part adhesive or epoxy. And I wanted to use my Gorilla epoxy, but the cap was open and the hardener hardened right in the tube. So I used the steel stick two-part. Use gloves. It's toxic. You don't want this on your skin, and it actually warms up as you're mixing the two parts together. It's like a gray and a black, and then it becomes like a darker gray when it's fully mixed. So I got this mixed. I put a big splotch of steel stick in the middle there on both of my crimps, over both of my crimps. It is really great stuff. I've actually used this steel stick. I had a 1994 Cadillac Sedan DeVille that had a windshield wiper on the driver's side. The post for the windshield wiper motor, or that was on the windshield wiper motor, stripped, and the wiper arm would just stay still. And I filled my wiper arm with steel stick and jammed it back on the post, and 4 years later, before I sold the car, it was still working because I could not find a replacement. It's the weirdest thing. But anyway, here's me using steel stick to cover these two crimps, and basically a little backup plan just in case those crimps didn't hold. So here I'm just making it look like a pie crust. I'm just taking my X-Acto knife and putting some striations in it. I ended up sanding everything after it hardened and made it a little bit narrower to make sure to accept that the body would accept the interior without having any weird rocking motions or anything. So I figured I'd show this entire process just in case anybody needs to work with it. I definitely mixed way more than I needed, but that was the tiniest sliver I could get off of the roll that I have from the tube. So well worth it. I've probably done a dozen or so projects using pieces of the steel stick that I have. That tube is probably 2 years old. I don't use it that often, but when I do, it's because I need something to stick or something to stay put, and this usually fits the bill pretty well. I feel like a surgeon with white gloves. I'm running out of blue gloves, and I like those a lot for when I use them for paint. So I had a box of these. I don't even know where I got these. I think somebody gave them to me, but they're really medical gloves. So there it is. Everything is in place, and right here I'm hoping that everything is going to dry, which it did. So now moving on to, I think I do the window first. Got a few pieces of Scotch-Brite, some 2000 grit sandpaper, my 4000 grit Fret eraser, and here I'm showing my initial jar of goo. It's a little apothecary jar with some paint stripper in it, the citrus strip. And our little body is in there, just baking. It actually worked. You know, I wasn't really a fan of the whole submersion thing, but it does work. So until it doesn't work, I'm going to adopt both methods. I'll continue to do both. So this window has a little bit of crack in it. I was going to put crazy glue in it, spot fill it, sand it, and I said, you know what? I think I can probably get away with 2000 grit to 4000 grit, a little elbow grease, and a few dips in the Revive It. So that's the route I took. You probably wonder why you see all the hand motion. I originally set this video up with the microphone on the camera, but there was so much background noise, I ended up having to do the overdub. So I'm using the Scotch-Brite pads to scuff up the chrome because I'm going to paint it white. I want the interior to be white. And I'm just taking any bad spots, I'm knocking them down a little bit. I'm also scuffing the chrome to accept the paint. So Better to have adhesion than no adhesion and have chrome leaching through. I hate that. So just a little extra step. And for this window, that crack was, it ended up being pretty substantial. It was all the way through, and I I debated like a lot. Like, should I fill this? Should I not fill it? Ultimately, I didn't fill it, but it did cross my mind several times while I was doing this. So I want to, sometimes I obsess and I want to make it super perfect, but then I remember that this is exactly what it is. I'm just trying to give it new life. So try not to obsess. I mean, it's hard, especially if you really like doing this kind of stuff and making these things look new and doing custom work and getting in there to salvage some of these toys that we'll never see again. So I sanded as much as I thought I could get away with without really compromising the window itself to where it would weaken. So I spent the time, soapy water, sandpaper, and then once I get through the sandpaper phase, I use my fret eraser. Hopefully you've seen the links to that in a couple of the other videos, but I'll add the link to this again. The company name is Stuart McDonald. They're a luthier company, provide tools for master luthiers, novice luthiers, guys like me who do minor repairs on guitars and maintenance. And it's a great tool. And I think they're about $7 or $8 for one. So it's not cheap, but if you just used it to help your plastics get a little life back in them, like I do, and I've shown in a few videos so far, that $8 will probably last a lifetime. You probably couldn't do enough window work, or even just, you could sand bodies with it too. You could put that on, any body, and casting, and use it to smooth out certain situations. And it's a rigid piece, so you can really, it's like an eraser. That's why they call it the fret eraser. So I highly recommend it. They think they go up to 8,000 or 10,000 grit, which is a cool thing. So we could probably even use them on painted pieces that have like a paint booger on it and you just want to get a little scratch out, or I don't know, I haven't tried it yet, but in theory I would think it might work. So again, when I do this, I'm looking for low spots. Anything that's super clear and shiny is a low spot, and I want to get the sandpaper to level as much as it can, remove as many scratches as it can, and make the dullness that you create by sanding it to be an even pattern. I call it sheen. It's not really a sheen, but it's uniform. So you want that frosty look, because once you end up putting in your Revive It, it brings back the shine. So I spent some extra time on this because of the age and some of the scratches and nicks that were in it. Trying to make the best representation I can at the end, and I was very happy at the end. So, putting the time in to do this definitely pays off. So that's me probably contemplating a fill again for probably the 50th time. But I ultimately decide against it. Not a bad piece considering the age, because the body looked like it was well played with. Sometimes it amazes me what survives and what doesn't on some of these cars. I mean, I have cars with windows that look like they were melted by gamma rays they're all twisted inside the body. It's like, how did that happen? Did a kid take, his little magnifying glass and sit it into the sun and let that window bake and twist? Was it in a fire? Was it near a heater? Who knows? So here we go with the dip. I love the dip. I think this is just the coolest thing. Whoever thought of this is a freaking genius. So we get our excess onto a paper towel. Let the paper towel soak it up. And there's my painted body, which was just a flat white. Actually, I think it was flat white primer. And I figured I'd give that a little dip to shine it up and make it look like some white vinyl interior, because the 70s cars had really great interiors, especially in the summertime when you sat down wearing a pair of shorts and you was in the sun all day and you stuck to them. So I end up putting the Revive It on, which led to some issues when I painted the motor. All came out well, but there's a little tip. You probably shouldn't use the Revive It if you're going to paint a metallic color. So my intentions were to do a transparent white with the Quicksilver Chrome as a base and have the sparkly effect of the white, or the sparkly effect of the Quicksilver show through the white. But the transparent white was not transparent enough. So this was really a wasted process. But I wanted to show how you actually apply this, because we've had several videos from other channels that show this process when they're doing the Spectraflame paint for Hot Wheels. Rather than do the zinc coating, you put a Createx makes it called gloss black. So you put down a coat of gloss black first, then the Quicksilver Chrome over it, and you use the Quicksilver Chrome very sparingly over the black. Then let it dry, and then you apply your Spectraflame over that. So that was my process here, thinking I could probably do the same thing and use the transparent white to get an effect. But alas, did not work. Quicksilver Chrome always lays down great. I probably should have just left it as this silver color, but who knew? Live and learn. Now I know the transparent white that I use is not transparent enough for the Quicksilver Chrome idea, or probably any candy ideas either, unless it's just the Candy 2.0 paint. That might be better. So there's the Quicksilver, which is kind of cool on its own. It's a very illuminate looking, like a billet look. And here is the transparent white, which was a complete fail. I could have saved myself a bunch of time and just primed it and probably used Rust-Oleum white right out of the can, spray can, and got the same effect. But like I said, live and learn. I did get a nice paint job out of it because I was using the airbrush. So my airbrush process is pretty much the same all the time. It's a light tack coat, some air, let it dry a little bit, another tack coat, usually 3 tack coats, and then 1 or 2 blasts. So I decided to make an homage, since it's a British car, make a British petroleum racer out of it. So there's some homemade decals, different scale sizes. And because I used the transparent white, which is water-based, I put a light coat of urethane clear over it so I could apply the decals and not have my water-based white start getting runny or smudgy. So I'm going to apply the decals, let those dry, and then I actually put another full blasted coat of urethane over the top. think I did the fast forward thing on this because this video was long enough. Still got about another 3 minutes to go here, so I sped this up to get through, trying to keep everything under a half an hour if I can. I know the decal process freaks a lot of people out. I've gotten more comfortable with it on these smaller scales. Doing it on, the old plastic models was a lot easier because the cars, the palette you had to work with was larger. These are a little more fiddly, so sometimes making extensions of your fingers is a smart thing. So I use Q-tips just to hold the piece down, or the decal down, and then lightly use another cotton swab to push the water out from underneath. I do that whenever it's applicable. Sometimes decals are really small on these things and you have to try other sources. So here is some microsol to soften up the edges and help adhesion. And then I get the rest of the microsol off of the urethane. I don't want it to sit on the urethane too long. So I did a little insert with the seat too. I painted it like a pea green, transparent. Here's the windshield. After 3 dips in Revive It, that crack isn't as noticeable. And I just made 3 simple decal applications. And I'm putting my window in. I painted the motor an aluminum looking color just to offset it. And the urethane, there's the pea green insert. The urethane clear, which is also the clear that I use to make the Spectraflame paint. The activator hardens this clear unbelievably. So normally I would wear gloves when I'm doing this because sometimes you're getting fingerprints in your clear job. This, so happy with it. And I was able to snap the body back on without using any glue. So here she is, all done on the poor man's rotisserie. The 1973 Corgi Jr.'s BVRT Vitamin 300 Mini Cooper. That's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, send me email. I'll have some more videos for you soon. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.